Okay, here we are again, the Maple Leafs Convo. Norm, along with Mike. It is Sunday, March 19th, 2023. The Leafs 2-2 this past week, finishing off the week with a 5-4 win over the Senators in a shootout. Alex Kerfoot, the one that everybody wants to get away.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, the man, the myth, the legend, the hero last night in a protracted shootout. Certainly a fun scenario for me, a fun game and a fun atmosphere against a fun team to play because the Senators are no slouch. I guess a lot of fans are kind of looking back, really upset with the officiating, but when aren't we, Mr. Augello? Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Norm. Yeah, the officiating was brutal. There were penalties called. I can't remember whether it was on Marner or Hall, or there was one where it was on TJ Brody, the tripping call that wasn't. And there was one where Brady Tkachuk was striding, and the stick of the Leaf player barely brushed his skate, and he fell like he'd been shot by Lee Harvey Oswald. And they called it. It was clear to me. It was clearly a dive.
But that's Brady Tkachuk.
And that's not typical of Brady Tkachuk, but it was a close game where Ottawa needed to. I mean, Ottawa,
but he's crafty, Mike. Let's again, for as Wendell Clark-esque as he can be, he's not stupid. He knows when he.
He's a great young player, and I mean that like you said before we started, that team has got all the fixings of a team that's going to be in the top 3 of the Atlantic Division for a decade. I mean, with Stützle, with Tkachuk, with now they have Shabbat and Chychrun on the blue line. Jake Sanderson's going to be really good. The only thing that's missing for them is goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically, the guy that they brought in a few years ago to be the goaltender there, who they essentially bribed teams to get rid of, Matt Murray, was the reason that they lost. And, there's somebody in the chat, one of the brilliant ones in the chat, were like, Murray seems shaky, rusty, whatever. Okay, did you watch the game last night? They faced 52 shots, and he had no chance on any of the 4 goals. So please shut up, because you don't know what you're talking about. Now,
find that comment, Mike.
Yeah, it's from Bitch Marner, so that just tells you
Marner.
Yeah, there you go. Almost guessing. What are you talking? And please, I mean, Matt Murray was probably the first or second star in that game, or should have been, other than Kalle Järnkrok, who scored 2 goals. Because the only reason they got 2 points is because Matt Murray was on last night. Now, Sportsnet came out with a stat after the game. Well, he's given up 4 goals in 6 straight games. Okay, that's where statistics lie, because the game against Buffalo, he played really well and gave up 4 goals, and the Leafs fell asleep against the Sabres. Where there's a shock there. And he gives up 4 goals against the Senators, but he was probably the best or second best Leaf on the ice. So that's where statistics lie. Now, the question is, because Ilya Samsonov played great against Colorado and great against Carolina, is who's going to start in the playoffs. And I think it's all going to rely on who has home ice advantage in that first round series. If it's Toronto, then I think Samsonov starts. And I think he starts both home games, no matter what he does.
Right.
If it's on the road, Samsonov may start, but if they lose, because you look at his home road record, he's 18-2-2 at home, and he's .500 on the road. His goals against is a goal higher. You could see them go to Samsonov. If he loses, go to Murray. I don't think I like I said last week, I think they're going with both goaltenders in the playoffs. That's the secret sauce. I think they're not going to rely on one and stick through with one through thick and thin. I think if a goalie plays bad, they have confidence in the other goalie to step up and play. That's the way they've operated all year, and I think that's the way they're going to operate in the playoffs.
This is the Convo. Norm along with Mike. Thanks for being here. OGs, converts, like the content, subscribe to the channel. The podcast version of this content will be up in the next 24 hours or so. You can listen to us without seeing our beautiful faces on the podcast platform of your choice. We've been advocating for a tandem, not because we think it's the best thing. It's because that is what is the best thing based on Samsonov's lack of experience and Murray's experience. If you know what I mean, he's been around, and you'd think that you'd have to keep one on a leash to mitigate pending disaster, and then for the other one, you'd have to monitor him based on the fact that this is, I wouldn't say uncharted territory, but these are formative times for him. So it's a good thing. And if one gets hot, that's great, but that's the coaching decision that will Sheldon Keefe will be confronted with, whether to ride the hot hand or take it for what it is and make sure that both of these guys are getting their playing time. You can see leading up to game 82, that is what's going to happen, injuries notwithstanding. And then right into the playoffs, Mike, your scenarios are pretty intriguing. The question will be, if Samsonov looks great in game 1, what's stopping Sheldon Keefe from rolling him out in game 2, game 3, and going forward, and keeping somebody like Murray on the bench when the idea is to have these guys offset one another no matter how they're playing.
Yeah, no, if Samsonov is great in game 1 and they're at home, then Samsonov is going in game 2, and so vice versa. Like with on the road, if he's great in game 1, they'll stick with him. If he's okay, or if he thinks the team needs, sometimes there's a boost in confidence. Sometimes there's a boost in something, in whatever. Changing up the goaltender, then you could see Murray. I don't think they're not going to start Samsonov like they're going to start Freddie Anderson every game. They're going to start Jack Campbell every game. I think that there is flexibility in terms of who they start in goal. And if you want to go back in Leaf history, the last time, and this is not an indicator of what's going to happen, but the last time that they had that 2 goalie situation where you had both goaltenders playing was Johnny Bauer and Terry Sawchuk in '67. I mean, it was always Paul Matier in '77 and '78. It was Felix Potvin in '93 and '94. It was Cujo in '99 through 2002. Belfour after that, and now under Babcock and under Sheldon Keefe, Anderson or Campbell. They've always stuck with one goalie, and most teams have. But I think now there is a thought that you're not barred by thinking that it's impossible to go with 2 goalies, and they might do that.
You wonder, though, you almost expect it, criticism if Samsonov gets hot, or if Samsonov looks good in his first game, and then you go to Murray and he's okay or loses, you're going to hear criticism to the idea that you got to let somebody get going. Right. And if somebody looks good, then let him play another game. But that defeats the idea of, sharing the workload, whether you're in the regular season or in the playoffs. It's, again, tough decisions to make. But the idea here is to win. But, it kind of pours water all over this idea that you're divvying up the duties if all you're looking for is somebody to, kind of catch lightning in a bottle and go wild.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like, I mean, it's going to be a meritocracy. It's going to be, if you play well, you're going to play. And if you don't play well, then the other guy is going to get an opportunity.
Right.
And I think, Murray dealt with that in Pittsburgh. It was not just him. Now, it was because of injury, but it was not just him. It was him and Marc-Andre Fleury. In the second cup that they won, Marc-Andre Fleury was in there for the first 2 rounds, and then Murray took over because Fleury sort of faltered, and Murray carried forth in the conference final and the final. So I foresee that as a possibility. Just like I think the Leafs, and sort of segueing to like what they're doing with their lineup, because I saw J.A. Scott in the chat talk about 11-7. The only reason that they're doing 11-7 right now is because I think they want to experiment with different line combos and different defensive pairings, as well as they have 9 defensemen, getting more of their defensemen more work down the stretch, where the only thing that is in consequence right now is home ice advantage, and they're 3 points up on Tampa when we're recording here. Now that's meaningful, but they had home.
Tampa's on the ascent again, Mike.
Yeah, that's meaningful, but having home ice advantage doesn't mean that Tampa can't win, because the Leafs had home ice advantage last year and Tampa Bay won.
Let me throw this out there, Mike, and we have lots of people in the chat, and I hate to cut you off.
Yeah.
Is it beneficial the Leafs start on the road?
No.
No,
because it's going to be a long series, and Game 7 will be in Tampa. So I think it's beneficial for them. If they could have it their way and start on the road and then play Game 7 at home, I would say fine. Okay, B. Marner, I don't care how he looks. I care that he stops the puck. That's the goalie's job. Please, Anton Forsberg a few years ago, when he couldn't stop a beach ball, he looked great doing it, but he was just terrible. I care about him stopping the puck.
Michael Matthew, tandem should not be Sammy and Wall. It should be Sammy and Wall, not that Murray character. That's next year. Double M.
Yeah, next year, because I'm convinced, and okay, barring Murray just stoning, being unbelievable in the playoffs and stoning everybody blind, I think this was a 1-year experiment. If you look at Matt Murray, the buyout for him is less than $1 million for next year. That would give the Leafs almost $4 million in cap relief, and I think Joseph Wall is ready to at least be an NHL backup. Plus, his contract, he wouldn't be able to clear waivers, and he's an NHL goaltender now. I think the way he's played, of course, the only time I've seen him in person was for the Marlies on Friday, and it was his worst game. But I think he's ready. I think the organization thinks he's ready, and he's under contract at $775,000 for the next 2 years. That benefit in terms of his salary and who they need to re-sign, like Ryan O'Reilly, like Michael Bunting, I think means that Murray either is going to end up on LTIR or he's going to be bought out. So this is a one-shot deal for Murray, but that doesn't mean I shy away from using Matt Murray if he's the best option in the playoffs.
OG's converts, who do you think the Leafs should start with in Game 1 against Tampa? Should it be Murray or should it be Samsonov? There's also a question in the chat, and I'm going to try to find it here. The question was to us from J.A. Scott. Who do we think is the better of these two keepers? On paper, Murray. In reality, probably Samsonov, Mike.
Well, okay, if you're talking about the here and the now,
right,
and you're talking about the playoffs, I still think Murray, with his pedigree, is the better of the two. Samsonov has won one game in the postseason. He's won, I think it was 1-6.
Right. But if Murray, the thing with Murray, he's a bit of a China doll, right? Like if something goes wrong, he's injured, and it could be a week or two. It could be longer than that, and any kind of injury could potentially remove you from important playoff moments, and there aren't that many of them, especially if you're not winning. So with Murray, it's a double-edged sword. You want to go in there and you want to make sure that he can give you what he's accrued and experience and in those big moments. But how many moments does he have left in him? Whereas Samsonov, he's the guy that would have to pick up the slack if Murray is injured. And
well, that's where the interesting question is who starts, because do you say we go with Samsonov, and then if Samsonov falters, you go to Murray, and then if Murray gets hit, then can you go back to Samsonov? I mean, that's all these questions. I mean, you just have to say they're sort of gonna play it by ear.
Right.
So, but if you're talking about the future,
right?
And everything is up in the air in regards to the future based on this team's success.
Right.
You can't say, well, they're going to sign Bunting, or they're going to re-sign O'Reilly, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Well, okay, who's going to do that? Because if it's Kyle Dubas doing it, then I think all those things are very possible. If they lose in the first round, then Kyle Dubas is probably not back, and then you don't know what the marching orders of the new general manager will be. Okay. So I'm just choosing not to look at everything past the first round, because the landscape of this team past the first round, depending on success or failure, is dramatically different.
Yeah, both have goals against averages under 3, save percentages over 9. I mean, Murray's numbers aren't as flattering as Samsonov, but based on age and where he is and what he's gone through, that's almost to be expected. You know, the whole idea of bringing somebody aboard like that, and players like Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Shen and these other support players, is not so much to reinvigorate them and have them somehow rekindle their prime era production. It's to bring what they've learned through big moments and success and apply it to the Maple Leafs in whatever way they possibly can, right? Um, less can be more, especially when there's a lot of less from many guys who are all trying to contribute to the same thing. So it really just comes down to health, Mike. If both of these guys can be healthy and it's they're done in 7, then so be it. If both of these guys can be healthy and you're into a third round playoff scenario, that's an amazing thing. If neither are healthy and you can't accomplish anything, then as we know, Mike, with the playoffs, and I've used this before and I use it, with respect, it's a war of attrition. You're expecting forwards to go down, you're expecting defensemen to go down. In this case, if a goaltender goes down, all bets are off, and you're just going to have to cross your fingers and hope for the very best. One more word on the goaltending situation. We'll talk about Matthews, Achari's injury, and get out of here.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, I think, if you look at and I know that the Leafs do, and I know most teams do. If you look at the statistical breakdown, Samsonov is 18-2-2 at home with a 1.95 goals against and a 929 save percentage. Murray is not even close as at home. On the road, Samsonov, his goals against is 3, his save percentage is 900, and he's a 500 record. And Murray's save percentage is 917, and his goals against is under 3.
And so that's not a coincidence in your mind.
No, I think it's a product of, sometimes with goaltenders, there's, comfortable sight lines in their home arena. They just feel more at ease.
Murray, is he just calmer because he's been around longer and he's been in those situations?
Yeah.
He's a calmer guy, and then that disposition can be beneficial regardless of what he has left in the tank.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, I think that they could very, very easily start Samsonov in the playoffs. But if they feel that he falters, if they feel that, like, that's a game that we should have won, that our goaltending was not there, then you're going to see Matt Murray. So I do think that, that's going to be the case. And, it will make for an interesting ride. We know that on the other side, that guy is going to play every minute of every game unless he's either injured or unless they get blown out or they blow somebody out and they put Brian Elliott in. But it's going to be Vasilevsky from game 1 to game 7 every single minute. And that's what you have to do, is beat that guy and just get good enough goaltending on the other side to make it possible.
Robert Bjorr, buy Murray out and give the money to Sammy. Josh Lamer, Sammy 100% should be the starter for game 1. I'm thinking Samsonov comes back. And Mike, I'm in line with your thoughts on a tandem for next year would be Samsonov and Wall, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Many more roads ahead for the Maple Leafs throughout the rest of this regular season, and what we hope will finally be a deeper road, a longer road throughout the playoffs compared to what we've experienced in the past. Funny, just on the goaltending, do you think Murray and Samsonov have a preference on what they'd like to do? Because as we discuss this more, maybe Samsonov is the guy, and Murray, in maybe not a limited role, but in a support role, can come in and help offset him based on where Murray is in age, what Samsonov's trying to accomplish, as opposed to, Matt Murray, you're the guy until you fall apart, and then Samsonov's going to have to come in and hold this thing together.
Yeah, I don't think it's up to them. I don't think it's up to their comfort level. I think it's up to
them. Do you think Murray, there's any ego there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think he thought they brought him in to have playoff success, and if they think that, Samsonov gives them a better chance to start the series, then I don't think he'll have a problem with it. But if he falters and they don't go to him, then I think he'll have a problem with it. But it won't be public, and I don't think, I think it's going to be completely up to the Leafs and what they think is the best course of action.
So last night, Mitch Marner up to his old tricks, man. Looking phenomenal. Austin Matthews, you can tell that he's, I wouldn't say, like, he's always engaged. He's one of the best players on the planet. But if he's not producing points, you're going to have criticism of him. He is producing points, but doing the other things that we wanted to see from him. We wanted to see become integrated in his game. And that's a good thing, Mike. Are you sensing that Austin Matthews is setting himself up for a big productive points run leading into game 82, and then sort of just kind of catapulting from there
Well,
when they drop the puck on the playoffs?
there were observations, and I think that they were right that things seemed off with him, like just not crisp, not as crisp as last year, not cashing in on opportunities that last year that he did. We know that he had the knee injury. But it only came out in the last week from an article from Jonas Siegel in The Athletic, I believe, that he was dealing with a hand issue, and that issue is better now. And you can see, I think, over the last few weeks that he's handling the puck better, he's shooting the puck better. So, those lingering issues. Now they didn't say what that was when it was going on. So you always have to take that when something is off, you always have to take that into consideration, because, you don't know the whole story, but he does seem to be sharper over the last little while, more engaged. When you're dealing with an injury, you're going to sort of be out of sorts. So,
Right.
But he is playing at I would say an optimum level. Marner has been fantastic consistently throughout the year. John Tavares, I mean, anybody
last night for him and Matthews.
Anybody who's a critic of John Tavares just needs to really stop, because, okay, he's making $11 million and maybe that's overpayment. He's got 30 goals this year. He's going to score 70, 75
$1 million in 2018, Mike.
Yeah,
Like,
he's going to score 75 to 80 points this year easily. He's a great player. He is part of this core. I mean, I don't get it. It's like they're criticizing him because of cap ramifications. Please, it's what he does on the ice. And Nylander has been great all year now. Like we were talking before the start of the show, it's like
sorry, and I hate to interrupt, but if you just break it down on dollar figure versus what you're producing on paper, I mean, you'd keep William Nylander over Mitch Marner, wouldn't you? Because he's making a paltry amount compared to Marner, and they're relatively close in their point production. So everyone's overpaid. Okay, Cliff Fletcher's not dishing out big crazy contracts. It's not Pat Quinn spending stupid amounts of millions on stiffs. Everybody who's involved in putting a contract together and signing it and lobbying to ownership understands the ramifications and is doing their math. Regardless of what they do, nothing is perfect. In most cases, everybody is overpaid, right? No one is ever going to be able to play at that sustained level. Austin Matthews is overpaid this year because he's not at 60 goals. It's the way she goes, man. Things evolve and guys go up and down. So the chatter on Twitter about who's making what and all of these guys are overpaid.
Well,
let's forget about it.
And that's been like the ongoing criticism of Morgan Riley this year is like, it's like $7.5 million. He's not worth $7.5 million. It's like, okay, last year, you're like, oh my God, we got Morgan Riley at $7.5 million. My goodness, how fantastic! And now all of a sudden, now he's, oh my God, it's 8 years of this. Okay, he's a good defenseman. He had a knee injury. He struggled for a while. I think recently he's started to really step it up. You have to pair him with the right defenseman. He's not a prototypical number one in this league. And that's the problem. It's like, okay, you're playing him number 1 minutes, and I think he's a really good number 2, but they don't have a number 1. So you have to make do with what you have. And I think, their defense, if you look at team wise, their defense has improved dramatically over the last, there's no Jake Gardners on this defense. Of course, they still have Justin Hall. So, that's 1 in 6. But, I think Jake McCabe has played solidly since they got him from Chicago. Brody is as steady as it comes. Giordano, They were smart to give him a night off for the first time this season and a second of back-to-back. They need him fresh for the playoffs. I mean, their defense is solid. Is it as good as Tampa? Is it as good as Boston? No, but it's good, and it's better than it's been.
Honking Antelope, quit justifying Riley's garbage play and his inability to not play a full season. Yikes! That's
Is he talking about Riley or? Well, okay. Please. He what was it? The year, I think it was 2019 he got hurt. No, 2020 he got hurt, and he came back in the bubble. Mm-hmm. He's been pretty durable. He's been pretty healthy. So I don't get that. Just a couple things in the chat before we go. The Matthew Nyes thing. Minnesota lost yesterday in the Big Ten tournament to Michigan. For what I understand, I'm not a big fan of NCAA hockey. I thought his season was over with, but they can get they were number one in the country. They can get an at-large bid to the tournament. So it may not be over with. And if that's the case, then they will be in the tournament. So, and they're probably the favorite. It's like somebody who hosts the Memorial Cup losing in the OHL playoffs. They're still going to be in the Memorial Cup because they're the host team. That's the best comparison I can make. But Nyes will be probably signed before or after the Frozen Four, which is April 7th and April 9th, and then would play a couple games. I don't know whether he's going to be in there for the playoffs. Sheldon Keefe playing a rookie ahead of veteran guys. If there's injuries, sure, but I think it's 50-50 if he plays. But they want to get him locked up, and he's a really good player. They want to get him locked up. They signed one of their draft picks, Ryan, and believe me, I butcher his name. It's either Verberg or Tverberg or Terberg. But he's a Toronto kid who played 2 years at the University of Connecticut. They just signed him to a deal. He's going to play with the Marlies the rest of the year. So they're going to get some of their prospects signed as these teams get eliminated in the NCAA tournament. So we can look forward to that, and that's something that we'll talk about. I've heard different pronunciations, Ryan. I've heard Verberg, Terberg, Tverberg. It's like, until we ask the kid, I want to know what's right and what's wrong.
And Mike, if you don't get it right, you're not authentic, okay? Honking Antelope, I think he was talking about Austin Matthews.
Oh, okay.
And again, Matthews, 62 games this year, 73 last year, 52. So the bubble, he played pretty much the entire season, 70 in 1920, 68, 62, 82. So
and 70 was the amount of games that they played before the league was shut down. So he has played full years. He's been injured, but I don't think it's been like lengthy injuries.
Yeah. Okay. Achari's injury, and then an update on O'Reilly.
Achari, from what Sheldon Keefe said after the game yesterday, they said they were encouraged. Now he got bopped on the head by Puljujärvi in the first period against Carolina on Friday. No penalty call, of course. Didn't return to the game. It looked to be more of a jaw, he got his bell rung. It got hit on the jaw. They said after the game that he handed out the championship belt. That's what they do for the player of the game. So, and then Keefe said yesterday that he was feeling better. Whether that means that he goes on the road with them, because their road trip is 4 more games. They came back home yesterday, and I think they'll practice before they go back on the road. That's up in the air. But if he does travel, then I would assume he's back. O'Reilly, the report was this week he started skating. Obviously, he's going to try to keep his cardio up and everything like that, but he has to be careful with the broken finger. I would say that more than likely he is back in the first week of April and plays 4 or 5 games before the playoffs. And that, that's good news for them that it's not like he's stepping into the playoffs after sitting for 4 or 5 weeks. So,
no one's expecting him to be a Conn Smythe Trophy type of player in the playoffs. It would be nice. It's just to bring that experience that he was able to gather and he was able to conquer ultimately to a team that needs that boost, Mike. And again, it's just a lot of little things from a variety of guys with experience who can parlay that into a new experience for the Maple Leafs. an experience that the team and the fan base and the general culture around the Leafs haven't experienced themselves for quite some time.
He's one more. He's one more in the mix with Stanley Cup playoff experience, like Achari, who got to the finals with the Bruins in 2019, like Yarncroke, who was with, I believe, was with Nashville when they went to the Cup final. He, obviously O'Reilly won a Conn Smythe in 2019, but I think he's there to lengthen that lineup, to play up the middle behind Matthews, behind Tavares, to provide a matchup problem for Tampa Bay. Because, he's going to probably match up against Point or against Cirelli,
right,
or against Nick Paul, one of the three, to free up Tavares and to free up Matthews to play against a better matchup that the Leafs believe. So, it's going to be important to get him back in the lineup and to get him back to being where he was before the injury. And we'll see what happens.
And it's quite the week ahead for the Maple Leafs on Long Island or wherever the hell they play on Tuesday, into Florida to play the Panthers Thursday, at Carolina Saturday, and then it's a back-to-back or into Nashville for Sunday. So that's a busy week. Lots of hockey, lots of stuff for fans to anticipate and then certainly chew on and then digest. We'll be here in 7 days' time to help in that process, and let's hope it's a successful week. Let's hope everybody can stay healthy, and when we do reconvene, we're slightly more positive than we have been today. And I feel like the general tone of our discussion this morning, Mike, has been relatively positive. So, before we go, hockeybuzz.com. What's happening with you there, and what are you sinking your teeth into?
Well, I'm not sure for the week. I'm probably going to start looking at like matchups, player for player or line for line or something for the upcoming series, because we know that right now, I mean, the one interesting thing, I'll definitely probably write about this on Monday, is the imbalance of the remaining schedule. The Leafs are playing 10 games on the road and only 4 more at Scotiabank Arena, whereas Tampa Bay their breakdown is pretty much even. So that's advantage Tampa when it comes to the race for second place. So we'll probably touch on that.
Yeah. When it's in your favor, Mike, there are no complaints. But if there's something to complain about it, you do. Just get these games done, stay healthy, get on a run, feel like you're on the ascent, and take another hack at this bloody thing. Okay, OG's Converse, thanks so much for being here. Like the content, subscribe to the channel. There's been an abundance of growth for us over the last 90 days, and we owe most of it to Mike, but the rest of it to you, and a little bit, a minute part of it to me for kind of producing the whole thing. So for Mike, I'm Norm. Talk to you soon. Bye.